Hey, what's up, guys? We're watching this video about No Room in Hell 2, apparently an exclusive preview and like information and stuff. I actually played the first one a lot when because it was free because I couldn't afford games like when I was younger. So I played that one actually a lot and it was pretty fun, including for like a free game. I don't think No Room in Hell 2 is going to be free, but I might be wrong. But yeah, I'm curious to see about
No
this game.
More Room in Hell 2. The premise of this one is pretty straightforward. You load
Looks
in
so
as
clean.
one of 8 players, all spread out in different corners across a large map. Then from there, you navigate the surroundings, searching for loot, fighting off zombies if they spot you, trying to survive and group up with other players so that ultimately you can complete the task required to get out alive. Unlike many extraction games, there's no PvP in this one though. The threat entirely comes from the zombies and the environment.
Which
There's
actually
a few
feel like a
zombie
threat.
types, each with their own challenge, lots of puzzles and mini games for you to figure out, often under the pressure of those pursuing zombies, and then a host of non-zombie dangers to keep an eye out for, like poison gas, electricity, and fire. So we played
all
the
the
game
normal
throughout
stuff.
the course of a full day, managing to get to the point where we were
Plus
pretty
fighting them with
comfortable
the
moving
little
through the map
knife.
with ease, quickly completing the required
Dude, you would never
objectives,
catch
and
me doing that.
extracting with inventories fully loaded with loot. And while the premise is simple, I gotta say, there's a lot of little details here that come together for what I found to deliver a rather fun play experience. That coupled with the developer's history, as this is the same studio behind the Chivalry series, and they've managed to bring that
yeah,
great
I forgot they made that
into
too.
this game as well. Although I will say, sorry, no, this is not like directional melee combat where you can swing up and left and block and parry down and right. That's not here, but
Not that
nevertheless,
kind of
the
chivalry
melee
combat
combat that they've delivered does feel good. It's weighty and impactful. It feels good to hit zombies in the face with things in this game. So yeah, now there are a few glaring issues, some things that stood out early on. Namely, those were performance problems, quite a few bugs, and then just the amount of variety in the game.
Sad.
But much of that is being addressed currently from what we've been told with some work in progress updates, as is typically the case as well with pre-release previews like this. We were playing a much older build. I gotta say, the technical concerns aside, especially if they can iron those out, the base game
probably will.
Absolutely interesting to me. I had a fun time playing and will certainly be playing more later this month once it releases. For now though, let's talk in a bit more detail about No More Room in Hell.
Wait, it's releasing later this month? Bro, am I living under a bridge?
To the game. Go over its systems, its features, and mechanics, all that stuff. Before we do though, a quick word from today's sponsor. Today's video is sponsored by New World Eternum, the long-awaited console release of the game. Beyond including everything from the original, it also comes with entire... So No More Room in Hell 2. Let me start off by taking you through the basic process of playing through a match. Now, as mentioned, you load in separate from the other players into your lobby. There'll be up to 8 people per game, and all of you will be spread out somewhere on the outer edges of the map. Now, the one map that's in the game currently is called Power Plant. It is set in rural Pennsylvania, and as you might assume, it features a massive power plant that's located in the dead center. So making your way to it is your primary objective, but before you do that, there's a few other things to do, specifically 2 things for you to do. There's going to be a pair of highlighted points of interest, each with their own objectives and tasks for you to clear. Now, which point of interest needs to be done seems to change from
opened
one
up to a
run
Diddy
the
party.
next. Although from what we could tell, it looks like it will always be a pair of the closest ones to the power plant itself. In fact, in all of our games, the pairs that we saw most often were the checkpoint and train station pair, as well as the sluice gate and field hospital pair. But regardless of what your objectives are, the process is the same. You start out on the edge of the map by yourself with a flashlight, a melee weapon, and a revolver. You've then got to make your way through the darkness towards one of the 2 initial objectives, and ideally trying to team up with one of the other players as well. You'll be picking up loot along the way and trying to navigate through the hordes of zombies. These zombies are all over the place, and they will react once you get too close. It's bound to happen. Ideally, you would just avoid them, as killing zombies doesn't actually give you anything. They don't drop loot, and they don't reward experience. All they really do is make your life more difficult and reduce your health. In a perfect run, you just avoid them 100% of the time, but the game makes sure that this does not happen. You can't just ignore the zombies. You will have to fight them on a somewhat regular basis. There are several different zombie types from what we saw. You've got the basic zombies who are slow, lumbering, easy to run away from and to kill. They just take a couple of headshots. That usually does the trick. Then you've got the runners who seem to have a much larger aggro radius, and once they spot you, it's pretty much something you are forced to deal with. They are very fast. They can catch up to you even while you are sprinting, so you're going to want to kill them or
It's like
you can try to
Zomboid, bro.
juke them if you run enough and jump on
Can't
and
get
over
rid of
things,
them.
like leap yourself over a gate that doesn't have an easy entrance around on the
Ooh,
side.
he
You
smacked
can
you. He
eventually
stopped him
lose
from
them.
shooting
Then
him
you
in
got
the
the
head.
red eyes.
Smart
These are
zombie.
similar in speed to the basic zombies, i.e. they move pretty slowly. However, these ones are extremely hard to kill. They take loads of hits, even directly to the head, and I'm pretty sure they deal more melee damage as
The
well.
red
At
eyes
least it
is
seemed
spooky,
that
bro.
way. As far as I'm concerned from my playtime, these are basically the elites of the game currently. Screamers are
elites.
really skinny and frail. They also seem to be somewhat rare. I don't even think these things attack you, but if they spot you, they absolutely do.
Oh my god,
let out
bro,
this
it's
awful
Asmongold.
wail that alerts everything in what seems like a mile radius. Then you got the burners, who are also kind of like basic zombies, except they can be lit on fire. They're gonna run around chasing you while aflame, and this can then cause you to catch fire, which you have to put out. All right, so those are the zombies. Now, in addition to dealing with all the zombies, you're searching
That's
for
cool
loot,
that the
and you're trying
fire
to
like
complete
spreads between
objectives.
them.
The big ones being those first 2 points of interest that are circled and marked on your map. You got to clear one of those before you can make your way to the power plant. Now, here's an example of what the process of clearing a point of interest looks like. So one common point of interest that we had to clear a few times in our games was this security checkpoint building. So upon arrival, you get this notification that the whole area is in lockdown and you have to find your way inside. The first thing you need to do is disable this alarm system just outside of the building, which then opens a door. Once inside, your goal is to restore power, and that process includes finding a fuse and placing it into the fuse box, rewiring a junction box. This is actually a mini game where you have to match the number letter combination.
Wow,
from
that
one
actually
side
looks
to the
pretty
other.
clean.
Once that's
for,
properly
like
connected,
the mini
you can
games,
flip the
usually they
breaker,
look
and
so
then now the power is restored.
retro.
You have to actually go and enter this password. You'll find it in the code book next to the computer. You got to put it in the computer, enter that properly. That finally lifts the lockdown, and then with the lockdown lifted,
Bro, he got like a speed boost. Also, can we talk about, I love how like the flashlight is in one hand and then you have like something else in your hand. It really like adds to like the horror vibe.
opens up the loot room,
And just the
there's
way
actually
they
one of
hold
these
stuff in
found
this game.
every point of interest on the map, and they are loaded with absolutely everything that you're looking for. In fact, if you did nothing but loot these loot rooms at the points of interest, you'd be fully loaded up. Here you're going to find various weapons and their associated ammunition, healing consumables,
I wonder how the
throwables, and
replayability
utility
is gonna
items
work.
like planks for boarding up doors or radios to distract the zombies. There's also these buff items that include things like armor and stims, enhancing your character. And at this point, because the
Stim me
game
up.
has a purposefully limited amount of storage space, you're gonna have to pick and choose what you take with you. Typically,
like
I
every
would take a
extraction.
pair of weapons with their associated ammos, a few of the healing consumables, this self-reviving syringe, and then a couple of grenades and
I
Molotov
just need
stacks
a
as well. Also in the loot room
self-revive.
is a laptop you have to interact
Black
with,
Ops,
and doing
bro.
so then grants you access
just need
to
a little
the power
revive.
plant, your main objective, and how you get to extracting. And then, of course, while you're doing all of this stuff, you're also dealing with zombies. You're fighting them on your way
The
into the
zomboids.
location, clearing the inside of any building where your tasks are, and
Bro
then
did
having to
not
fend the
see the
zombies off
flashlight.
as you attempt to complete your checklist. They'll continue to come in through the doors,
Oh,
either
they can
knocking them
break
down,
stuff. That's
or if you
sick.
board them up, they'll slowly break down those boards, especially if you happen to make a lot of noise, like if you set off an alarm or if you fire your weapons. More and more zombies are going to come and try to disrupt your goal of completing those tasks.
I
Now,
just
you only need
wonder
to
if the
complete
amount
one
is
of the
enough
2 circled
of
objectives on
zombies.
your map in order to proceed to the power
From
plant.
what I'm
Although
seeing.
doing multiple of them means more loot for your run. It'll be more ammunition and new weapons for fighting the zombies. But also the most valuable thing you're looking for are supplies, which if you extract safely, these function as experience, leveling up your character, making them stronger for the next run, because the game does have a count and character progression. So yeah, a
Oh,
lot of
okay.
times you
Kinda
are
like
going to
Hunt
want to
Showdown.
clear multiple points of interest beyond the first one, and each of them will have a similar list of tasks as well as a loot room for you to collect more loot in. So these will include bringing fuses to fuse boxes, matching those number letter combinations, lock-picking memory puzzles, turning pressure valves, entering secret combos that are found at nearby most of the time, or setting pressure levels on machinery. And yeah, some variation and combination of these different tasks will be found and need to be completed at every point of interest, which again opens up that loot room, which is what you're after. But once you've completed
loot
one of those
room.
2 marked objectives, it's then time to make your way to the power plant. Now here you've got a much longer similar list of tasks spread out throughout the whole massive area. And I really don't want to spoil the specifics here, as going through and figuring this out ourselves was a lot of fun. So I don't want to give you like the exact process step by step. But basically, the overall gist is first you're tasked with entering the power plant. There's actually multiple entrances depending on the round and what marked points of interest you got. That's going to determine if you're entering from the northwest or east of the power plant. And once inside, you're going to have to complete several stages of objectives. This will vary from run to run as well, and it'll all be marked. It'll tell you what part of the power plant you have to go to and what it is you have to do. You're also going to get a radio broadcast that spells it out for you on top of that. But yeah, you're going to head to these different locations, do a similar list of tasks to the ones found at this point of interest, and this is going to culminate in you having to maintain the plant's power in the center by completing this rotating series of tasks, keeping it going with wave after wave of increasingly difficult zombies coming at you. This is all hectic, it is difficult, frankly it was quite stressful, but also that's what made it a whole lot of fun. And then finally, once you've done everything, if you have survived, a helicopter comes to pick you up. You've got to sprint to the landing pad, fight off the last pursuing zombies before finally extracting. And you want to extract because this is an extraction game. It's got character and account progression.
Nah, bro, I wanted to jump off a cliff.
You get to keep your character, and then we'll progress it based on what you brought out with you.
Oh, so literally Hunt Showdown.
The biggest thing, as again, it functions as experience points that level
the Hunt Showdown loop.
So when you first play, you start up your very first match, you're actually going to be given an assortment of 3 random characters to pick from. This comes with some like backstory, like what their job, their occupation was, their hobby. But most importantly,
Leon Kennedy with dreads?
Pick the perk that you start with. So for example, maybe I get like a constructor and he will do bonus damage with melee blunt weapons or something. Or maybe you find a pro athlete and they get like increased sprinting speed.
Rough.
And then on top of that, if you go through a match, you extract alive, you have supplies, you level up at various leveling intervals. At first, it's every 5 levels, and then beyond level 20, it's every 10 levels. At those points, you get to pick from 1 of 3 additional random perks.
It looks like an angry
principal. And there's quite a few of these available. Eventually, once your character gets to level 50, you are going to have 8 perks unlocked that you selected from those random assortments. Although, interestingly enough, the developer did tell me that the game actually has this built-in difficulty scaling. So yeah, if you get a character to level 50, you are stronger because of all those perks, but the challenge level of a run is apparently determined by the level of the player characters within it. Or what this means otherwise is that a run full of level 50 characters is going to be significantly harder than a run full of level 1 characters. We didn't really get to experience that in the day of playing, but I'm curious to see how this plays out as people play and spend a lot of time and have high level characters. How much more difficult does it get with a full maxed out lobby of level 50 characters? And so that's pretty much everything that we saw about the game. As for my initial thoughts, generally I'll say I enjoyed my time with it. I like this kind of a game. This seems like an interesting twist, and it does look pretty solid so far. In particular, my likes include the combat. This was very good. The melee feels crunchy. The guns also have a good kick and impact for the most part from what we saw.
Yeah, the way
this isn't too surprising to me, given what I played from Chivalry in the past. That game felt great, but you never know, and so I'm happy to see that they also delivered once again, and this game has good feeling combat as well. Generally, it seems like the game is pretty well made. Lots of potential here. Now, there were some bugs and performance issues, which I will get to, but also there was a lot of polish.
Yeah, like what the heck
way
was
the
that?
world looks, the animations and sounds, the environment, the character movement. Like I said,
Get away
combat
from me,
feels
bitch.
good. There's still definitely more work to be done, that is for sure, but I do like the foundation from what I saw. The map is huge and it's got a ton of varied points of interest. We've not even seen all of them yet, but what we did come across included a cemetery, a big hospital, this train station, a church, a farmhouse, a ranger station, and then beyond all of those named points of interest, there was a variety of terrain. We saw lakes, woods, swamps, rivers. There was a section of the woods that was caught on fire, which was cool to see. Just some great environmental building and ambiance. And speaking of which, this game's pretty scary at first, honestly. Great sound design, lots of jump scares. Everything is really dark, only being illuminated by your personal light sources or light sources.
Bro was sitting in the dark.
It actually reminded me a lot of my time when playing Hunt Showdown. When you're first getting started in there, you get a lot of sounds and jump scares that leave a pretty big impact. Although for sure, this is one of those things that becomes less of a factor. The more you play, you eventually learn what every sound means, and it doesn't become surprising or let alone scary for you. But as you're first getting started, there's definitely a lot of ambiance and cool, scary moments that are built here. As for my dislikes, starting off, the lack of zombie variety, in particular, the fact that there were no bigs like what we would consider elites or bosses. I would love to see some large
the elites just looked like normal
rather
zombies,
than just
to be
all of
honest.
these regular humanoid-sized zombie enemies, but there didn't appear to be any of that. At least we didn't see any playing for a full day and going to many different points.
See, I might be wrong, guys, but I swear in No More Room for Help 1, like the original one, they had zombie variation. Like there was big and like obviously there was a lot of the normal zombies, but they had special zombies, I swear.
Interest, and there weren't any big bosses
Unless I'm
in
thinking
the
of a
final
different
room. We
Dead Island
extracted
or
several
Dying Light
times. We
instead,
just saw
but
all normal zombies.
I
I'd love to see
swear.
some big boss types, right? There also appear to be no events, like nothing dynamic happening, like what you might see in Left 4 Dead or Dark Tide or similar sort of games. There was nothing like that, like no incoming hordes of zombies where things got harder and you got an announcement of it. Now, maybe it is happening in the background and they're just not announcing it on the UI, but we didn't see anything that led me to believe it was a dynamic event. The only events that we saw were just the static points of interest and the things that occur at them. Also, speaking of which, we did feel like things were getting pretty easy even after just the afternoon of playing. Like once you learn the points of interest,
like it just doesn't seem like there's enough zombies or enough variation in zombies for it to be difficult. Like Zomboid, that game is like the hardest zombie game I've ever played because one, there's just so many zombies, and then there's so many like small things like, oh, you jump through a window of glass, now you're bleeding, you know what I mean? Like, or now you have a disease from this, you know what I'm saying?
Puzzles and the tasks that you
Not
have
that
to
it
do
needs
there,
to be like
it's
that,
always the
but
same.
there
It
should be
never
more
changes.
zombies.
So every time you go to the security checkpoint, you're always doing the same things in the same order. So after just a few runs of successfully completing this stuff, we were at the point where we were just sprinting to the objective, finishing the task list in a couple of minutes, and then on our way to the power plant. My first match lasted like an hour and a half as I was like stumbling around and figuring everything out. By the time we got to our 6th, 7th, and 8th round, it was much quicker. We were at the power.
Well, I'm going to be real. The matches should probably only be taking 20 minutes, maybe 40.
Plant in like under 10 minutes, from an hour and a half to under 10 minutes. Now that sort of streamlining as you get game knowledge, that's not uncommon. Adding more dynamic things to these points of interest where it's not always the exact same objectives in the exact same order at the exact same locations, which it appears to be from what we saw. Making that more dynamic would...
Yeah, like even if they did, like, because they have that level scaling thing already, they could do where like the higher level you get, they add more zombie variation, or they add like certain zombies have certain buffs and perks like variations, or they could just make it where more zombies come in. But I don't want it to just be more though if they're gonna do the higher level thing, because like I feel like that's just not enough. But yeah, it would be cool if they did like something kind of similar to like World War Z, like where they have like the hordes, like when you get to the higher levels, when you have like the big guns. But
kind of add a little bit
doesn't
more
need to be
it
that
as far as
crazy.
I'm concerned. Also, for example, the final room in the power plant, I'm not going to spoil exactly what happens, but it's pretty much an identical process every time. The only thing that changes is the codes that you are entering. So yeah, that would be nice if there was more variety. And then besides those gameplay and systems dislikes, I gotta say there were quite a few technical things. Lots of bugs we saw, falling through the terrain, sliding off hills and dying, getting stuck in objects. This happened quite a few times. There was also a few animation bugs, like my character holding the gun extremely awkwardly, and then also just the performance. This is probably my biggest concern right now.
Yeah.
Lots of spots in the game it go from running totally fine to absolute garbage, and that happened frequently enough that it was quite frustrating. A lot of stuttering, a lot of frame issues, and this would actually result, unfortunately, for as good as the melee system is, it would feel inconsistent at times because all of a sudden you'd be going to swing an enemy and there would be hitching, and then the zombie would hit you because he would like skip forward and teleport a few beats. That wasn't great either. The developers did tell me and give me a list of their planned launch day 0 patch, and that's going to include things that address a lot of these issues. They say they're going to be dealing with the floating head bug, some of the floating firearms bugs, which I saw personally, weird responder views when interacting with mini games, a lot
these
of the
just
server
are quality
crashes,
life
some of the zombie
changes.
interactions, zombies losing interest in players, zombies rendering in at low resolutions, the down but not out state glitching, some environment and level design issues where players get stuck at specific locations. Again, this happened to me. Some bugs that stop players from completing points of interest, some audio issues, some frame rate and optimization improvements, and then they say there's going to be general quality of life changes that should add a lot of polish in that day 1 experience. So that is a good list. We'll just have to see once this game comes out if it actually addresses all of those issues properly. Now, on top of that, They've got some balancing updates that will be coming with day one when the game launches. They're going to be enhancing the difficulty by making more zombies spawn. They're going to be improving AI reaction speed, which makes it harder to run past zombies unscathed. We were running past a lot of zombies unscathed in our final few rounds. And they said there are going to be some changes made to the skill unlocking system. Now, beyond all those patches, they also have an early access roadmap, and there's a lot of interesting sounding things here. They're going to be adding some new responder respawn locations. They're adding an infection system, which sounds really cool. Curious to see how that plays out. There will be new weapons, new zombie themes, performance improvements, stability and bug fixing, difficulty improvements, and UI and UX improvements. That is all currently in development, according to them. And then there's a bunch of more interesting ideas in concept, as they call it. Really not sure how far along these are. There's no like estimated release date for any of these, but the ideas in concept sound good if they come to the game. That will include the second map, codenamed Hospital, weapon attachments, multiple responder slots for different characters, customization.
I'll be honest, these all sound like things they're gonna do. Like, they're so simple. Like, if they don't do them, that's crazy to me. Like, it's not like they're promising big things here. Like,
starting loadout options, a nightmare mode, a second game mode, more maps, like more zombie types, more weapons, items, and skills, combat improvements, and then refinements to the power plant map. And basically,
yeah, that stuff later on, besides the refinement for the map, that's all probably going to happen. Like, I'm not sure about that other stuff. I think that kind of depends how well the game's received.
Everything on that ideas and concept page, I want to see as soon as possible, because one of my biggest concerns beyond the performance and bugs is the amount of variety that is in the current game. Because like I said, I had a lot of fun with the game. I actually genuinely really enjoyed playing it, but we felt like we kind of had it figured out after a day. That feels like there needs to be more time there before we
I hate when that happens.
Feeling where we're just like moving through the map with ease and we basically have the formula sorted, right? But yeah, all that said, I generally liked the game. I had a fun time playing it. I'm hoping for the best. No More Room in Hell 2 is going to be launching into Steam Early Access on October 22nd. Definitely keep an eye out for those early reviews about how the performance is and the bug reporting, because yeah, those were 100% my biggest issues. But hey, I had a fun time playing, hoping it comes well together, hoping it comes together well, and I'll be spending some more time with it later this month.
Yeah, check out Force Gaming, guys. He's a G. I don't know why I'm not subbed to him on this account, but yeah, because this is not my personal. But yeah, this guy's really good at making these kind of videos where he looks at usually previews for new games coming out. But anyways, what do you guys think? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Jeez, I'm struggling like he was. Because, like, I'm kind of curious. Because, like, even if they just added where, like, if you shoot a gun, then the difficulty goes up. Like, if you go, like, all melee, then it's a little easier, maybe. But I definitely think they just need to add more zombies. Because it's just... it feels bad, like really bad, like from what it looks like, because it just looks like there's not enough, and it looks like it's really easy once you play through it once, you know what I'm saying? Which I'm not saying it shouldn't be the hardest thing, like it shouldn't be Zomboid level hard, but it should be, you know, more of a challenge. Hopefully they add variations, but I am really excited. I'm going to be playing this when it comes out, so if you guys want to watch that, I'll probably be streaming it. Depends on the day. Hopefully I can. If I can't make time to stream it, I'll definitely record it and post it. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Please like and subscribe. See you guys next time. Peace.